It's finally here. We're going to show you the recipe on how to make the Oxtail Ragu from Vincenzo's restaurant. This has been something that people have been asking for the recipe for since we opened 4 years ago. And we've all been a little bit reluctant to share it because it is a family recipe close to our hearts. But now Dad's opened the deli and we've started selling the oxtail, we're going to finally share the recipe. So basically the main star of the ingredient is oxtail, which is just the tail of the ox, but nowadays we normally just use the tail of a cow, female or male. You can see it's got the core here, where the bone is, and that is just filled with the most gelatinous goodness and flavour ever. So most of your flavour is going to come from there. It's a really fatty cut of meat, there's a lot of fat around it, but don't worry because we're cooking this low and slow for hours. It's all going to render down, that fat's going to melt into the sauce and make that dish that you all love so much at the restaurant. Let's get started. So first things first, we're going to start off by browning the meat. So as I said before, we have started to sell the oxtail in the deli. You can get it in a kilo bag and they're all different shapes. Some are smaller, some are larger. I'm doubling up here because you all know we feed the masses in this household, there's 8 of us. So I've gone for 2 kilos here. But 1 kilo is going to easily serve 4 with some left over. And with the leftover oxtail, the most amazing thing to do with it is an oxtail ragu lasagna. You'll never use bolognese again, it's amazing. So I'm just going to coat the oxtail with a little bit of olive oil and I'm going to go in with some salt and pepper and season that heavily. It's really important that we're seasoning the meat now when it's raw, because when it goes into that hot pan when you seal it, it's going to seal in all that seasoning. So salt and pepper, and then we're just going to get our hands a little bit messy, flip it over and do the exact same on the other side. Pan's on the heat, nice and hot, because now we're sealing meat, we don't want to stew it or boil it. So oil goes in, I can start to hear it sizzle, that's what I'm looking for. And I'm going to go in with a few pieces of the oxtail. Again, little tip here, don't overcrowd the pan. So as soon as you put too much in the pan, the temperature of the oil is brought down, you're going to start to boil the meat. You want to really get a nice golden colour. So my pan's quite wide, so I can go in with about 5 or 6 pieces. As well, when you're making anything like a meat ragu or even a stew or a bolognese, you always want to use a heavy bottom based pan. So a lot of recipes ask this, and if you don't know what that is, basically you want something that's got a thick base so it's not going to burn or catch. Here's an example of something that's really thin and not heavy base bottom. So if I was to put this in here and cook this low and slow, the likelihood it's going to catch because it's thin, it's conducting a lot more heat. If you want something with a really thick bottom, I definitely recommend investing in a good pan like that. The oxtail's out now, just to show you the sort of colour we're looking for. It's nice and golden on all sides. So in the same pan where we've got all that amazing meat juices, we're going to go straight in with some diced onion, some diced celery, garlic and some carrot. Now, little tip here as well, guys, we're making a sauce, not a stew, so really kind of work hard on getting your veg nice and small. We don't want big chunks of it. By cutting it small, when we're going to cook it for so long, it's going to practically dissolve into the sauce. And if you want, you can't be bothered chopping small, which often happens in our household. Little mini chop is amazing for doing things like your carrots, your celery, your onion, or even in a food processor. Just pulse it a few times, you can get all your veg nice and small. The veg has been cooking for about 15 minutes now. Again, this step's super important. You can just see how soft that is. That's really important because that's going to add a lot of depth and sweetness to the ragu. So veg is soft. I'm going to go in with the oxtail and 3 bay leaves. We've got a little bay leaf tree in the garden. Honestly, one of the best things I can recommend buying, especially when it's coming into the summer. They're dead easy to look after. And you've got bay leaves on tap, and if you get too many you can break them off, put them in a little freezer bag and keep them frozen. So go in with 3 fresh. If you're using dried, just go in with maybe 4 or 5. I'm going to go in with the oxtail and all that juice that was left over. Just toss it all in, scrape that all in, that's all flavour. So now the oxtail's back in the pan with the veg, give everything a good little mix. I'm going to go in with some red wine. Just enough to sort of, I'd say about 2 large glasses. So just shy of half a bottle. And this is just going to help add more depth of flavour. It's also going to help encourage all those bits of the meat that maybe stuck to the bottom of the pan. So I'm just going to let that reduce. And you're just looking for the water to sort of evaporate, the liquid, sorry, to evaporate by half. So the wine's reduced, that's been on for about 2 minutes. So now we're ready to add our tomatoes. So let's talk tomatoes. You know, this is something that's very close to my heart, and that I always go on and on and on about quality tomatoes, but it really does make all the difference. So in the deli, we're now finally stocking the Muti tomatoes, which you know I go on about in every single video. They are great quality. We're also selling this brand here, Casamorazzo, which is also, these are beautiful, these are direct from Italy. We are selling these in the small tins, but if anyone on request did want to order a big tin, if you're making a big batch, we can sort that out for you. I'm using whole plum tomato, so I'm going in with 1 full tin. Tomatoes have gone in. The next most important step is we need to add some liquid, some water to this sauce. Because we're going to be cooking this for a long time, we don't want it to burn and catch. So if we just left this like this with the tomatoes and nothing else, it's going to catch, it's going to burn as it starts to cook and the moisture evaporates. So I'm going to go in and fill this tin filled with water. So I've got my water. This is great to swill all the extra tomato juice around the tin. That's going to go straight in. I think about half a tin, just the size of my pan. I'm going to go in with some more seasoning, some salt and pepper. And then my final secret ingredient is the end of a Parmesan rind. There's always one of these floating around at the bottom of the cheese straw. So that's just going to go straight in, and that's going to add a really nice sort of creaminess, cheesy flavour. That goes straight in. Everything a nice mix now to make sure that there's nothing sticking to the bottom of the pan. Also, when you're cooking this, the golden rule, make sure the oxtail is constantly covered. You do not want any exposed bits, because if it's not submerged, it's not cooking. So make sure everything's pushed down nicely. And then this is going to go on the lowest heat. We're not going medium, not medium high, lowest heat. This is so important. And we're going to cook this for a minimum of 4 hours. And what we're looking for is just all that sinew and fat and the oxtail to break down to the point where you can pick a piece of the meat up and the meat's fallen off of it, or it should just be a pot full of bones and the meat should be all broken off already. So low heat, leaving that for 4 hours. Make sure you give it a mix every 20 minutes because we do not want this to catch. And if you feel like it's kind of cooking away too fast, just go in a little bit more water and that'll just stop it from burning. Okay, so the ragu has been on for 7.5 hours. I know that sounds like a crazy long amount of time, but that is what you need to make a perfect soft ragu. Obviously mine's taking a little bit longer because I doubled up and I've used 2 kilos. If you feel at 4 hours yours still isn't ready, it's not falling off the bones, just keep on going with it. Keep that heat nice and low and carry on. I'm going to show you now, if you come in close, you can see the way all the bones are clean, the meat's just falling off. Now it's ready to serve, so I'm just going to toss mine in a little bit of pasta. You can use whatever you like, rigatoni like the restaurant. So just straight in the pan, I'm going to put a little drizzle of olive oil, good quality extra virgin olive oil, a little bit of Parmesan, just sprinkle that over. And with the heat of the sauce and the heat of the pasta, I'm just going to toss everything together and we're ready to serve. Straight into the dish and top it with some more of that amazing thick ragu straight on top. And like all good pasta dishes, it's always finished with a drizzle of olive oil and another sprinkle of some Parmesan. So there you have it, guys. That is the Vincenzo's Oxtail Ragu.